spicy. Jimmy Garoppolo on there could be a benefit, but have they kind of burned that bridge?
I will say this. Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL.
I love Gardner. Welcome to 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football. I am your host, Brian McFadden. We are live on YouTube and Twitter. It is Friday, September 30th, 2022. If you're watching this on the Pro Football Demon channel and you did not tune into our show last week, just a heads up that Pro Football Demon is good in Florida. He has had lost power, but his power is back. He's got a little bit of water damage, but otherwise is okay. Shout out to Rich. Hope you're doing okay. We will have him back on the show again next week. Thank you for tuning in. It's Friday. That means we are going over the upcoming NFL slate, Week 4. Quickly, we'll talk about last night's game. We're going to do game picks against the spread. We'll give my explanation for each of my picks with the confidence rating. And last week I did this by myself, decided I did not like doing an entire 30-minute show by myself. So I asked my producer, Anthony Wehner, to step in since Rich, the Pro Football Demon, is still recovering from Hurricane Ian. Anthony Wehner, welcome on the guest side of 30 Minutes of Football, dude. How you doing?
Good. I spent so much time behind the scenes, I forget how much I like talking about football. So I'm excited to be here.
You got to do double duty because you'll see that if you're watching on YouTube, the timer that is normally sitting by itself is, we still got to have it. So it's just going to be in front of Anthony so that it's a little bit easier for him to manage. And also you have to produce the show. Anthony is going to be giving us his picks as well. And as always, even though Rich is not here, I'm going to put a ticker at the bottom that will have all of the Pro Football Demons picks against the spread for this week if you guys like to track who he picks for Week 4. So I am ready. Anthony, are you ready to do double duty and get this party started?
Yes, definitely ready.
30 minutes of football with Legit Football starts now. So first we're going to start by sharing the picks, confidence rating. Quick reminder, there's a confidence rating I have next to each game between 1 and 16. The higher the number, in this case 16, the more confident I am in that pick against the spread. I went 9-7 again last week. My record for the season is 26-22. I think that's a win percentage of 53%. Yet to have a losing record in a week. Haven't blown anything out of the water, but at least staying above 500. Also going to go ahead and put Rich's picks at the bottom here. We're just going to leave that ticker going. I'll try to remember with each pick to announce for those just listening on the podcast and not watching who the Pro Football Demon picked. So without further ado, got the first one wrong. Hearts go out to Tua Tagovailoa with a horrible head and neck injury. He was taken to the hospital last night. He has been released. He flew back and is with the team back in Miami. He is in the concussion protocol. There's neck injuries too, but he was alert shortly afterwards. He has movement in all his extremities. He had a neck brace on. To be determined whether they would have covered. It was my confidence 5. I wasn't super confident. I did pick Miami to cover, but I did say that I thought the Bengals would win. 2-second thoughts on this game, Anthony.
I thought it was really exciting. I kept texting my brother. I'm like, I'm loving this game because it was so competitive on both sides. There were a lot of mistakes that were made, I think. And honestly, if that hadn't happened to Tua, I think that Miami could have won the game.
They're driving at the end, and it was a Teddy Bridgewater miscommunication and a bad interception that ended up completely sealing their fate. So
yeah, don't get me wrong. With Teddy Bridgewater being a veteran quarterback, I believed in him. I'm like, he's seen the game plenty of years. I'm like, he can pull this off, but he doesn't get as much playing time as he should, and he hasn't connected the way that Tua has with Waddle and Hill. And so I think there were miscommunication on the sideline there.
There's a reason he's a backup at this point. We have to remember that he's a very solid backup, but he's still a backup quarterback. We will keep you guys updated both in the Legit Football newsletter and on this show as to his progress. They get a little bit of an extra break because it was Thursday Night Football before next Sunday's game. Thank you, David. Shout out for Tua, David Morazzo. Appreciate your words there. All right, let's go ahead and start diving into the Week 4 slate, starting with there is a London game. So for you and I, Anthony, on the West Coast,
Yeah.
I don't know if you wake up this early. I have to watch every game. I will be up at 6:30 a.m. on Sunday watching this. The Vikings are favored by 2.5. It says at New Orleans, but clearly this is not at New Orleans. This is in London. That's just more of a formality. I'm very confident in this game. I have picked the Vikings to win and cover that 2.5 points. My confidence level is 15. Before I give my explanations why don't you give me your picks and thoughts on this?
Yeah, I have Minnesota covering, and they are favored by 2.5. And I think, and with Jameis Winston unlikely to play and Michael Thomas being ruled out, Andy Dalton will be starting this game. I don't think Andy Dalton can do much against the Vikings. He really can't do much at all anymore. He's not like he was in his prime. And I just think the Vikings have all their pieces together to be able to beat New Orleans in London. And it won't be a blowout game. It'll be a little bit defensive, I think. But I think the Vikings will cover and win.
I'm actually less confident with Andy Dalton starting than I would be with Jameis for the Vikings to cover this, only because I think Dalton will. You don't see the variability. You don't see the turnover differential that you see with Jameis, who has thrown 5 interceptions in the last 2 weeks. He might have more of an upside, but I think Andy Dalton will utilize these playmakers. Michael Thomas is out. That's noteworthy, but Kamara will be playing. It looks Chris Olave will be playing. There are other pass catchers. Jarvis Landry is questionable, but leaning towards like he's going to play. So I feel like the Saints will be a little bit more stable. They do have a pretty good defense. But I just think that the Vikings will find a way to move the ball. I think this Kevin O'Connell offense will make sure to get Justin Jefferson involved early. Do the Saints put Marshawn Lattimore on them? These are a lot of questions. So I was more confident with Jameis, but I have to stick to it here. I'm going with Minnesota to win and cover. Let's go to the Los Angeles Chargers. Traveling to the Houston Texans. Very good setup for LA here, coming off such a devastating loss to the Jaguars last week with huge injuries to Rashawn Slater, who's lost for the year, and Joey Bosa, who's on injured reserve and out for, at least like 6 weeks. To get a Houston Texans team who we put at number 32 in our power rankings, I'm confident that this is such a good setup. The points 4.5. I mean, if you would have given me 4.5 points at the start of the season for the Chargers against the Houston Texans, I would have taken it in a heartbeat. I still think there's a lot to like. Justin Herbert finally practiced in full. This is my number 13 high confidence level. Oh, and once again, I got to remember, Minnesota, Pro Football Demon picked Minnesota. They're also picking the Chargers, so we're aligned so far. Who do you like in this game, Anthony?
So I like the Chargers in this game to win, and you're going to think I'm crazy, I think Houston can cover. And the only reason I say that is because the Chargers seem like they're dealing with a lot of issues right now, not just with injury, but with play calling and everything. It doesn't seem like they're on track. It doesn't seem like they have a rhythm. They just got blown out by Jacksonville. And then now they're at home in Houston. I just think that they have a little bit farther to go before they have everything together. And I think Houston can pull it off somehow. They're not personally, I would not have put them at 32. Maybe 30, which isn't that much farther, but I think Houston can still play a good game. And if they can, then I think they can cover.
I would have thought that before the season started, but so far Houston is one of only 2 teams that has not won a game along with the Raiders. And they just lost to a lowly Bears team that, managed to throw 2 interceptions, Justin Fields, and still ended up beating. So I'm just not high on Houston. I thought I would be higher. Like this is a bounce back game. Speaking of those Bears, Chicago Bears traveling to the New York Giants. Giants are favored by 3.5. I'm expecting this to be kind of an old school run defensive game. Neither one of these teams excites you in the offense. We saw the lack of pass catchers for the Giants really got to them in that Monday night game against the Cowboys. Chicago, Justin Fields is maybe playing some of the worst quarterback play in the league right now. But I don't necessarily like the Giants roster enough, especially with how well Chicago ran the ball last week, and I think they'll stick to it, to win by more than 3 points. So I am picking the Giants to win this game at home, but I don't see them beating Chicago by 4 points or more. That's why not very confident. My confidence level is 4 for this game, but I am picking the Bears to cover. Pro Football Demon is against me on this one. We differ. He is picking the Giants. What about you?
This is such an evenly matched game in the worst way.
Yeah.
Because there's really not much going on offensively at all for either team. I think it's going to be defense, and whoever scores last is going to be the one who wins. That's how I see it, and I think that's going to be the Giants.
Here's a peek behind the curtain of my process. I've told you guys before, I watch every single game in some capacity. I feel the need to have to properly analyze them. I don't just look at box scores. I have Sunday Ticket. This is one of those games I'm just going to kind of tuck off in the corner and not really pay attention to it. I feel like if I can just watch it on Game Pass, speed through it, kind of get the highlights, I'll have a general gist. So not excited, but I am picking Chicago to cover. Let's go to your Detroit Lions. Following a tough division loss to the Vikings, quite frankly, a game they should have ended up winning. But they get a Seattle team who has, speaking of bad offenses, one of the worst offenses and an even worse defense. They just let the Falcons score 27 points. They allowed the 49ers, who have had offensive problems, to score 27 points the week before, and they get them at home. 4.5 points is the spread. I think that's too low. This is my most confident game, Anthony. Congratulations. I am the most confident with a level of 16 that the Lions will not only beat Seattle, but they will win by probably 6 or 7 points. So they'll cover that 4.5 point spread. Pro Football Demon is aligned with me. He's also going with the Lions. I'm going to go out on a limb and saying you're going with Detroit too.
I'm going with Detroit. This is the most exciting Lions team I've seen since 2014. And I just think, like, the Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson era, we can finally move on. We have closure now because we have an offense that can produce just as well as they did. Amon-Ra St. Brown is out this week, but I think that the other receivers and Hawkinson, I think they can handle the workload that Jared Goff's going to give them.
I preview the NFC West games on the 49ers Rush every Thursday. So if you're a repeat listener and viewer, David Morazzo, I know you are, you'll know that I already broke this down a little bit. I'll quickly give one more addition here, is that from an DVOA standpoint, which is Football Outsiders metric for kind of measuring overall team and unit success, the Lions are lined up very similar with Atlanta to having a very high-powered offense and a defense that's kind of middle of the road, but Detroit is slightly better. Well, the Falcons just beat the Seahawks by 4, so that 4.5 point spread, that's why I have a level 16 confidence level. Let's go to the upstart Jacksonville Jaguars, fresh off 2 big wins, shutting out the Colts and then beating the Chargers, some teams' Super Bowl picks, people's Super Bowl picks, by 28 points last week. They're traveling to the now only remaining undefeated team, Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are favored by 6.5. It is in Philadelphia, but I really like Jacksonville to cover this game. I don't think that they'll win at the end of the day, but I think their offense and their defense is playing at a level, well, it's hard to imagine Philadelphia winning by a full touchdown or more. Your Detroit Lions were able to lose by only 3 and kind of come back against this Eagles team, so they do have some susceptibility. I love how efficient they're playing under Doug Peterson. Happy to pick Jacksonville to cover. It's a 10. I'm pretty confident with this game. And looking down at the Pro Football Demon, he does disagree. He thinks the Eagles will win by 7 or more. What about you?
Yeah, I like Jacksonville in this one. And the Eagles beat the Vikings, Lions, and Commanders. So is this their real challenge, like their first actual challenge against a team that just blew out the Chargers, who were Super Bowl favorites starting the season? And a fun fact, the third best starts to an Eagles season was in 1993. It was the last time they went 4-0. And so this could be the second time in decades that the Eagles went 4-0. But I think that Jacksonville will establish a run game against the Eagles, who have allowed 110 rush yards per game so far. Do that, and you can beat the Eagles. And I think that they're not as good as they're looking. And so to stay consistent, I think is the hardest part for them. But Jacksonville, I think they're established a rhythm, and they're ready to go out and win. I think they can beat the Eagles.
So you're picking them to win and cover.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that. This is one of the games I'm most excited to watch because I want to see if this Jacksonville team is for real. They have looked so good, and so like their turnover differential has been high. They're just playing good, efficient football. You don't see Lawrence making these wow plays, but he's been highly efficient, very accurate, running the offense well. James Robinson has looked great, so I really want to see how they match up against an Eagles defense that absolutely decimated Carson Wentz last week. Let's go to the New York Jets taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here's a battle of 2 meh offenses with 2 defenses that have some players but maybe haven't performed all that well. I'm not confident in the Jets to win this, but 3.5 points I think is a bit rich if you're still relying on Mitch Trubisky and an offense that just put up 14 points against a beat-up Browns defense the week before. So while I do think the Steelers will win at home, I can't see the this offense putting up enough points for them to win by 4 or more. Fairly confident. I have a confidence level of 12. I am picking the Jets to cover. Pro Football Demon agrees with me. Anthony, your thoughts?
Yeah, I have the Jets to cover this one. I think Pittsburgh sticking with Trubisky is it's not going to look good for them. And then Wilson's returning, so I'm excited to see what is capable of. And Flacco was very pass heavy, so with Breece Hall and Michael Carter being able to carry the ball, I think it's going to look good for the Jets. I think they can come out and win and cover.
I think they're going to, Zach Wilson, to be determined whether he's the QB of the future, but I think his at least ability to be mobile will add a little bit of an extra spark. They do have some playmakers on offense like the Jets in this situation. Cleveland Browns, we just mentioned them traveling to the Atlanta Falcons, fresh off a victory against the Seahawks. The Browns beat the Steelers on Thursday Night Football last week. Browns favored by 2.5 on the road. I'm a big fan of this Falcons team. But I just think that they still have a talent dearth, especially on the defensive side of the ball. If we see the Browns offense that we saw last week, Kevin Stefanski's really in rhythm. Jacoby Brissett is actually playing very well. Amari Cooper has 2 100-yard games in a row. David Njoku came out last week, and Nick Chubb is the number 1 running back in the NFL, short of maybe Saquon. So I just think that to think that this game is going to be under 3 points, I like this point. I'm not super confident here. I like Atlanta. I think they're one of the friskier teams right now, but I'm going to pick Cleveland to win and cover. What about you?
Yeah, I like Cleveland's offense, especially the run game. But Atlanta, because I watched the Rams game where they came back and almost won, almost beat defending champions. And even the game against the Saints, they were only a couple points away. And so every game that they've played has been very close. So I think that, and they have all healthy players. I checked the injury report before this, and they have nobody on it. And I think that they have a strong team. I know Cordell Patterson is questionable, but it's going to be a game time decision. I think he'll play. If he does, I think that they can beat the Browns. I think I have Atlanta in this one.
Atlanta winning and covering. Nice. Yes, I like it. The Pro Football Demon agrees with you. Pro Football Demon is picking the Falcons to at least cover, if not win. So very interested to watch that game. We'll wait for the second half. We got 30 seconds left. I don't want to dive into looks like we got about 8 games left. Should be perfect for the second half. Quickly, tell me about your process on Sundays. Do you just watch the Lions? Do you kind of pay attention to some other games? Tell me in 20 seconds what your Sunday ritual is.
Yeah, so I turn on the 10 a.m. games, and it's usually the Lions. So I'll watch the Lions game, but I'll also be looking at updates, and I'll have another game on my other TV and everything. And then so I'll watch every game from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. and mostly focus on it's halftime now.
There you go. That's all right. We got your ritual in. Nice job with the chime. Couple things I want to mention. First, starting Monday, we have Jimmy Ray from NFL Stats on our Wednesday Power Ranking show. Well, guess what? I didn't think that was enough. We're going to have him on our Monday recap game. So starting this coming Monday, 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern, leading into the Monday night game, we're going to have Jimmy Ray from the NFL Stats Twitter account joining me to recap all of the Sunday action and then preview Monday Night Football. And for those that don't know, I actually do a Twitter Spaces with him for the first half of Monday nights. We've done it the past 2 weeks. It's been well attended. There's no chat feature, so it's not like we're chatting with the people, but it's kind of like our Manning cast. It's just me and Jimmy just giving our thoughts on the game. So we thought having him on the Monday episode of 30 Minutes of Football leading into that made a lot of sense. So stay tuned for that. And as always, guys, if you're not already, please go subscribe to legitfootball.com. It's 100% free, and you can always unsubscribe if you don't like it, but I recommend trying it. You're going to get your daily dose of NFL news, the top stories, the top 6 stories, all the injury news and updates that you need to know 5 days a week right to your email. Anthony, you're Legit Football, so I can't have you plug Legit Football again. So any last thoughts, anything with regards to Sunday or anything before we jump into the second half here?
Yeah. I'll finish my spiel. Especially primetime games. I always make sure I have time for primetime games because I like to sit down. I like to analyze each play, each game, and that way I can make accurate, fantasy football moves or accurate predictions. And I like to catch I catch every primetime game no matter what. But when the Lions are playing, it's really hard to focus on the other games. But I try my best. Then after that, all day I'm just watching as many games as I possibly can turn on. Usually what's on YouTube TV locally. Until I get NFL Sunday ticket. So I'm excited to possibly get that one these days. So next
year it should be on a streaming service. So I happened to buy a house that had DirecTV satellite already installed, so I was like, oh, they asked if you wanted to take it down. I said, absolutely not. I will be getting DirecTV for the first time this year. And my first full year at Legit Football couldn't have timed out better. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the second half so we can hit the rest of these Week 4 games. I will go ahead and share the screen, and let's bring up Mr. Pro Football Demons picks at the bottom. All right, where we left off, the Indianapolis Colts AFC South Divisional Showdown at home, welcoming the Tennessee Titans. Both teams coming off wins. Both teams coming off their first wins. Colts beating the Chiefs, and the Titans holding on to beat the Raiders last week. This I'm going to put out there as my least confident game for so many reasons. These are two teams that just came off a win, seem to be very evenly matched. I picked the Colts to win the division in the preseason and picked the Titans not to make the playoffs. The Titans have played kind of how I expected. The Colts have played worse than I expected. But that being said, the fact that it's at home, this point spread is 2.5. I am not super confident this game could absolutely go either way, but I do feel that at the end of the day, I like the Colts running attack. I think they'll feature Jonathan Taylor a lot. The Titans have had trouble stopping the run. So I just feel like this is a game that's really setting up for the Colts to build a little bit momentum. I am picking the Colts to win and to cover. Pro Football Demon agrees with me. Your pick, Anthony.
Yeah, I'm actually going with the Titans on this one. I'm going to differ just because I think that the Colts showed up against Kansas City, who actually, I think, beat themselves. The Colts haven't been able to produce on offense very much. I mean, with Jonathan Taylor, he hasn't been what he was supposed to be this year. And I think it's going to continue that way for a little while longer. But the Titans have kind of found their way. It's like they'll do good in one quarter. So if they can put one quarter into 4 quarters, then they can start winning games again. And I think I have to go with the Titans here. I don't really believe in the Colts right now. So, yeah, Titans cover and win.
All right. Dallas Cowboys, NFC East. We're starting to see some of these division matchups, which is exciting. Welcoming the Washington Commanders. Dallas, fresh off another NFC victory on Monday Night Football, pretty decisively over the Giants. Washington, fresh off an absolute drubbing by an NFC rival, Eagles, last week. Point spread is 3.5. I'm pretty confident. I have 11 confidence that Dallas will not only win, but cover that 3.5 points. The pass rush looked phenomenal last week. And guess what? You got a Dallas team that had over 20 QB pressures on Daniel Jones and the Giants last week, going up against a Washington team that just not only allowed 9 sacks, but had like 16 or 17 QB hits against the Eagles. It's just so set up just from that particular matchup alone for the Cowboys to run away with this. Cooper Rush can no longer be considered a liability. He has actually been a very efficient quarterback and has run that offense well in Dallas. Washington can put up some points, but their secondary has also been susceptible. Just not a lot to like. I think 3.5 points is too low. It is a division game. Sure, it could go either way, but I'm pretty confident Dallas is going to cover. Pro Football Demon disagrees with me. He's got Washington. Anthony, you split the difference here.
Yeah, I want to bring up the pass rush first because I saw Daniel Jones just leaving the pocket every play. He had to. You know, that pressure was too much. And then with Carson Wentz and the Eagles, he got sacked, was it 5 times?
9.
Nine times. So he got sacked 9 times. I just think that might be a repeat. If the pass rush is just as good as the Eagles was, then they're going to be able to stop Carson Wentz and the Commanders. So Cowboys are going to win and cover.
Yes, agree with you there. Let's move on to probably the game of the week. Not probably. I don't really see any other games on this that would compete with this. Maybe KC Tampa Bay. But how about the Buffalo Bills? Still, a lot of people's pick to go to and win the Super Bowl, mine included, even though they lost last week. 3.5 point favorites on the road at the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens looking excellent and are 1 quarter of play where they lost to the Dolphins in that 4th quarter away from being undefeated. Bills also very close to being undefeated. These are 2 of the best offenses in the NFL. That being said, the difference I see here is the Ravens defense has actually not been very good. They just allowed the Patriots. They did beat the Patriots by 11. A lot of that was due to Lamar, and we need to keep him as a factor in mind. But they did allow the Patriots defense to score like 26 points or 27 points, whatever it was last week. We all know that the Dolphins, Tua threw for 6 touchdowns against them. They just had to sign Jason Pierre-Paul to add to their pass rush because that's been lackluster. They've had injuries in the secondary. So while I can see this very much being a shootout with a lot of offensive points, I think Lamar is going to do his thing. These are maybe two of the top candidates for MVP right now, in Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, so it's going to be fun to watch. But once again, the Buffalo Bills, only 3.5 points. I will take that all day. So I am picking, my confidence level is 9, but I am going to pick the Bills to cover that. Pro Football Demon, as usual, disagrees with me. He is picking Baltimore here. Your thoughts on this very exciting AFC matchup?
Yeah, I'm going to bring up the stat sheet because the Ravens are allowing 25 points per game and 366 pass yards per game. And with the Bills' offense being the way they are with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, this is like asking to put up 35 points. Like, this is like, okay, so we're going to put up they've allowed 25 points per game right now, the Ravens have, and the Bills have allowed 12. So if you think defenses, it's not evenly matched. The offense maybe, but not defensively. So it's really going to be about who's going to score the most points, and I think it's going to be the Bills, and they're going to cover and win, and it's going to be way more than 3.5, I think.
Yeah, I like that you brought, looking at the stat sheet is a very simplistic way, but in this case, I think it does tell the story. If you've let up 25 points a game without having played the top offense in the NFL and the Bills, you're going to, in all likelihood, see north of 30 points, especially with the Bills coming off that loss. They're going to be extra motivated. The fact that it's on the road doesn't really affect me here at all. The Bills went to the West Coast in LA in week 1 and absolutely destroyed the defending Super Bowl champions. So I really like the Bills. I'm almost feeling like I should have put a higher confidence level. I guess the reason I have it at 9, which is still above the middle, is more just because I really like this Ravens offense and Lamar Jackson playing the best football of his career, better than his MVP season. So I could just see him like scoring a late touchdown to keep it like within a field goal, but still going to stick to Buffalo. All right, let's go to another one of those bottom dweller games. Arizona traveling to Carolina. Arizona is actually underdogs. The Carolina Panthers, fresh off their very first victory against the Saints last week, are favored by 1.5. I know it's at home, and I know they're coming off a win, but I'm a little surprised that Arizona is an underdog here, which is why I have Arizona winning and covering with a confidence level of 14. Pro Football Demon agrees with me here. Are you going to make it a trifecta? What are your thoughts, Anthony?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think that they're playing decent football. But now
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say they're playing decent football.
They're playing okay football. So basically, they still look like a professional football team, just not a very good one. But the Panthers just like to shoot themselves in the foot too often, and I think Arizona can capitalize on that. I also agree with you.
Yeah, so I'm going to break it down a little bit more. It looks like we've got some time here, which is always good. Arizona has, I don't think they've looked like a good football team at all. They actually have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. DVOA has them ranked, I think, 30th or 31st in defense. They lack a pass rush. They've had trouble stopping the run, and they have problems in the secondary. But guess what? Carolina is not set up to take advantage of that. Their one bright spot is Christian McCaffrey, who is now looking like he will play, but he missed 2 days of practice with a thigh injury. This is on top of an ankle injury, and I think something with his knee early. I mean, he's just stacking up these injuries. So even if he does play, he's not going to be 100%. Now, 90% is Christian McCaffrey is still good, but I don't think that's enough. The Panthers are not a good enough offense to take advantage of where Arizona is the weakest. And if you compare the quarterback play, I'm going to take Kyler Murray over Baker Mayfield all day long. Baker is playing with Justin Fields, maybe some of the worst quarterback play in the entire NFL. So I just think this sets up really nicely for Arizona, who's struggled out of the gates, to get a victory here, hopefully get closer, for their sake, to getting DeAndre Hopkins back in week 7 without a completely devastated record. So I just think this sets up, unless Carolina gets some sort of turnover and picks, a defensive touchdown like they did last week, very confident in Arizona covering this game. All right, we got 4 games left to do, and it looks like just about 5 minutes to do it. Las Vegas Raiders, still winless, but favored at home against the Denver Broncos. That says a lot. 2.5 points. I think that Vegas realizes, like Vegas as in the betting Vegas, realizes that even though they're 0-3, they've been in every single game. They've been competitive. Even that Chargers game in week 1, they were rolling with the Chargers and then just couldn't keep up. They were destroying the Cardinals and then let that game go, and they almost came back to beat Tennessee last week. It feels like they're right on the edge. I can't see them starting 0-4, and I think the victory is going to be 3 points or more. Denver actually has one of the best defenses in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
simultaneously have one of the worst offenses in the NFL. So the fact that this is at home, I think they'll make a concerted effort to really get Devontae Adams involved. Mac Hollins is a nice surprise for Vegas. Don't love their defense, but they have a good pass rush. I think that'll make the difference. Russell Wilson showing he's not as athletic as he has been in the past. You can get him pressured. Nathaniel Hackett has not really been calling great games as far as a play calling standpoint. So I just like how this game sets up for Vegas to get their first win. That's why I'm picking them to win and cover. Pro Football Demon disagrees with me. He's going with the Broncos. Your pick.
You know what? I was going with the Broncos at first, but I might have to change it. I think I have to.
Did I just convince you?
I think you just convinced me.
Nice.
It all adds up. I mean, you're absolutely right. And yeah, the Broncos defense is still one of the best as always. But their offense, and I believed in Russell Wilson. I drafted him on 2 of my leagues.
A lot of people did.
I'm like, Russell Wilson's going to blow up. He's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL for Denver this year, and he hasn't done anything good. And I think, regarding that, I think the Raiders, they are. I mean, like you said, they're staying in games. Yeah, they haven't won one, but they're staying in them. And so if they can just sort of stop Russell Wilson, which hasn't looked hard, I think they can come out and win. I think I have to agree with you now. I'm switching.
You're welcome. And I'm not sure if I announced it. My confidence level for this is 7. It is a division game. Denver does have that good defense. If they can force a turnover or win the turnover battle, I can see this going the other way. So kind of in the middle confidence level. But yes, I think we see Vegas get their first win here. Let's go to Lambeau Field, the Green Bay Packers with the highest point spread of the week. 10.5 points favored over the New England Patriots. It is, as I mentioned, at Lambeau. It's a home game for Green Bay. Couple questions. I have 8 as my confidence, right in the middle. And I do have Green Bay covering. I don't feel great about that. It was a reflection of a couple things. One, the Patriots offense, short of last week, against the Ravens defense, which we already talked about, has not looked good at all, even with Mac Jones. And it has been trending like Brian Hoyer was going to start this game, which pushed it even more in Green Bay. But not apparently, Mac Jones practiced today. So today's Friday. He did practice. Bill Belichick has said he's day-to-day. After seeing how he ended that Ravens game with his ankle and everything, I don't see how he could be day-to-day. He looked as in incredible pain, but nevertheless, he could be. And that being said, it's either a hobbled Mac Jones, who still hasn't proved to be very efficient on offense, or Brian Hoyer leading a Patriots offense against a very good Packers defense and who has played very well except for week 1 against the Vikings. But you almost throw that out at this point. Packers always play bad in week 1 for some reason. 10.5 points is rich, especially if Mac Jones does play. I'm not super confident. If I knew he was starting, I probably would have moved that confidence level down. But I think I'm still going to go with Green Bay covering here at 10.5 points. I could just see this being a 2-touchdown game. Romeo Doubs is finally starting to come. If the Packers and Aaron Rodgers have found that number 1 receiver that they can rely on. He caught 8 of 8 targets, including a touchdown last week. I just think this Green Bay offense could start to get going. They could really use that running game. And New England defense has been pretty good, but not great. And the offense has been flat out bad. Green Bay, your thoughts?
Yeah, if Brian Hoyer starts, I think it's going to be more of a Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson versus the Packers run defense. And I think it's just going to be focused on that. But if Mac Jones plays, I think he's okay. But fun fact, the Packers are 17-1 in Rodgers' past 18 home starts against AFC teams. That being said, I think Green Bay is going to win, but I do think Patriots are going to cover. I do not like betting against these really high point spreads because at the end of the day, these are all professional football players. I think they can keep it close, and I think the Patriots can cover.
Betting on an 11-point or more victory against a Bill Belichick team is tough to swallow. I don't blame you for picking that. I don't switch my picks. When I set them on Thursday, unless there's some major, like if Justin Herbert hadn't have played against Jacksonville, I would have switched that pick. Pro Football Demon agrees with me, so we are both picking Green Bay to cover. I don't feel great about it, just if you guys are using this information to bet for your own stuff, but I'm going to stick with that. All right, just over a minute left. Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Tampa Bay. Yes, they are playing in Tampa Bay. That's been officially announced. They're not moving the game. They're going to play in Tampa Bay on Sunday night. Chiefs are favored by 2.5 on the road. I have a confidence level at 6. Tampa Bay has a great defense. but I don't think it will be enough to stay within 3 points. They're getting Mike Evans back, which is nice. They might have Godwin and Julio Jones, but still, the Tampa Bay offense in general has just looked lackluster. I think the Chiefs bounced back after their loss last week. I've got them winning, maybe not by a whole lot, but I've got them winning by a field goal or more. Pro Football Demon agrees with me. What about you, Anthony?
Yeah, I can't bet against Tom Brady. I got to go Tampa Bay. And he's angry right now, so he's going to be playing some angry football. So I think he can beat Kansas City at home.
All right, so for this next game, we don't have to go in deep because we will preview it on Monday. San Francisco, Monday Night Football, hosting the Los Angeles Rams. San Francisco is actually favored by 2.5. I'm picking them to win and to cover for a multitude of reasons. I will give you those reasons on Monday if you tune into the Monday show. Quickly make your picks.
Rams win.
Okay, Pro Football Demon is also picking the Rams, so I'm out on an island here. Guys, thank you so much for listening and watching. As we mentioned, if you're watching this on the Pro Football Demon YouTube channel, he will be back with me next week. He's going to be on the Thursday show where we have those live fantasy questions that you guys like to throw at us. So it'll be next Thursday, assuming everything's, he's got a lot to deal with at home, understandably. Our thoughts are with you, but the plan is to have him back on next Thursday for the 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific Thursday Night Football and live fantasy question episode. As I mentioned, I'm going to have Jimmy Ray from NFL Stats on Monday's show, 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern. And you know the rest of the schedule. Anthony, thanks for producing the show and stepping in. Good luck to your Lions this week. I think this is a good week for you guys. Thanks for listening and watching. This has been 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football. Enjoy the games, guys. That's spicy. Jimmy Garoppolo on there could be a benefit, but have they kind of burned that bridge?
I will say this. Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL.
I love Gardner.